Welcome, everyone. I'm excited to welcome you today to our presentation titled Miqat. This is the first slide, and I want to start by sharing a brief overview of what we'll cover. We'll explore the concept of Miqat, its significance, and how it plays a vital role. So let's get started and dive into this interesting topic together. Let's take a closer look at the Miqat, which is a very important concept in our discussion. The Miqat refers to the designated points where pilgrims intending to perform Hajj or Umrah must enter the state of Ihram. These points are strategically placed around Mecca to facilitate the pilgrimage process. Here you see several key Miqat locations. First is Dhul Hulayfa, which is the closest to Medina and is often called a Biar Ali. Then we have Dat Irq, which is further south, serving pilgrims coming from the southern regions. Next is Karn al-Manzil, a Miqat that travelers coming from the north or east often pass through. Yalamlam is another important point, especially for those traveling from the east or southeast. Jufa is used by pilgrims coming from the coast or from Africa, and it's situated on the western side of the Hijaz region. Understanding these points is crucial because they mark where pilgrims should enter the state of Ihram, which is a sacred state of purity and devotion. Recognizing these locations helps us appreciate how the pilgrimage journey is structured around these specific points, connecting the spiritual preparation with the physical journey. Overall, these Miqat points are not just geographical markers. They symbolize the beginning of spiritual readiness and devotion for those on their sacred journey. Let's talk about the concept of Miqat. Ibn Abbas, Raa, narrated that the Messenger of Allah, letter FDFA, designated specific places for people to assume Ihram, depending on their point of origin. For the people of Madinah, the designated Miqat is Dhul Hulayfa, which is about 540 kilometers to the north of Mecca. For those coming from Ash-Sham, including Syria, Jordan, and Palestine, the designated place is Al-Jufa, located roughly 187 kilometers northwest of Mecca, near Rabigh, where they perform their Ihram. People coming from Najd, a region to the east of Mecca, are assigned Quran al-Manazil, a mountain overlooking Arafah, about 94 kilometers away. And for those traveling from Yemen, the designated Miqat is Yalamlam, a mountain 54 kilometers south of Mecca. These places are specifically marked for travelers from these regions, as well as for anyone passing by them on their way to perform Hajj or Umrah. An important point to remember is that if someone lives within these boundaries, they can assume Ihram from where they set out on their journey. And even residents of Mecca have their own designated Miqat, which is the place where they are staying in Mecca. This system helps organize the pilgrimage and ensures everyone enters Ihram from the correct place, maintaining the sanctity and order of the rites. Now let's look at the concept of Miqat, which is the designated place where pilgrims intending to perform Hajj or Umrah enter the state of Ihram. In this context, Aisha Raa, one of the Prophet's letter FDFA beloved spouses, narrated an important detail about the specific Miqat for those coming from Iraq. She mentioned that the Prophet, letter FDFA, specified Dhihat Irq as the Miqat for people traveling from that region. Irq is located approximately 94 kilometers to the northeast of Mecca, making it a significant point for pilgrims from that area. This narration, which was related by both Abu Dawud and An-Nasai, highlights the importance of following designated Miqat points according to Islamic teachings. It reminds us that the Prophet's guidance was precise in defining these places to ensure the proper observance of rituals. As we connect this to the overall theme of our presentation, it underscores the importance of adhering to the prescribed rules and locations when performing Hajj. It's not just about the rituals themselves, but about doing them in accordance with the authentic guidance of our Prophet, letter FDFA. This ensures that our acts of worship are valid and accepted, and it also reflects the unity and consistency in how we approach these sacred rites. Let's talk about the concept of a missing Miqat. As you know, the Miqat is the designated point where pilgrims enter the state of Ihram before performing Hajj or Umrah. Now, what happens if someone misses that Miqat? Well, this can happen for various reasons. Perhaps they were unaware, or maybe circumstances prevented them from reaching the designated point in time. When the Miqat is missed, the situation becomes a bit more complex. The pilgrim is still required to perform their rites, but they need to take specific actions to make up for the missed obligation. This often involves offering a sacrifice, known as a dam, or performing a certain act of atonement, depending on the circumstances. It's important to understand that missing the Miqat doesn't mean the end of the pilgrimage. Rather, it requires awareness and corrective steps to stay aligned with Islamic rulings. This point underscores the importance of planning ahead and being mindful of the designated entry points into Ihram. Connecting this back to our overall theme, it highlights the significance of proper preparation and knowledge about the pilgrimage process. When we understand what to do if we miss a Miqat, we ensure that our journey remains valid and spiritually fulfilling. Let's now explore the different opinions regarding missing the Miqat. Hanafi scholars say that if a person returns to the Miqat and recites the Talbiyah again, then they are not liable for sacrifice. However, if they return without reciting the Talbiyah, then a sacrifice becomes obligatory. Moving to the Maliki view, they emphasize that even if someone misses the Miqat, they still need to offer a sacrifice, known as dam, regardless of whether they return to the Miqat afterward. Shafi scholars have a slightly different take. They state that if a person crosses the Miqat without entering Ihram, they must offer a sacrifice. But if they return to the Miqat before entering Ihram, and they haven't performed any Hajj rites yet, then no sacrifice is required. Lastly, the Hanbali perspective is straightforward. They believe that if someone goes back to the Miqat, then no sacrifice is necessary. The key takeaway here is that different schools have varied views on what constitutes liability for sacrifice when the Miqat is missed or crossed without proper intention. These differences highlight the importance of understanding specific rulings within each school, especially as they connect to the broader themes of Hajj rituals and maintaining proper Ihram. Let's talk about the concept of a missing Miqat. As we've discussed earlier, the Miqat is the designated station where pilgrims enter the state of Ihram before performing Umrah or Hajj. But what happens if a pilgrim misses this station? That's what we refer to as a missing Miqat. When someone misses their designated Miqat, it can lead to a few important implications. Firstly, it's essential to understand that the rules of Ihram are very specific, and entering Ihram from outside the proper Miqat without proper intention can affect the validity of the pilgrimage. In such cases, there are specific ways to rectify the situation, such as performing a certain act of expiation, known as kafara. This might involve offering a sacrifice or other acts of atonement, depending on the circumstances. Connecting this to the overall theme of the presentation, understanding the importance of the Miqat highlights how crucial it is to plan and be mindful of these key points to ensure our pilgrimage is valid and accepted. Missing the Miqat isn't just a small oversight. It can have significant spiritual and legal consequences, so awareness and proper guidance are vital. Now, let's look at the different scholarly opinions regarding missing the Miqat. Hanafi scholars say that if a person returns to the Miqat and recites the Talbiyah again, then they are not liable for sacrifice. However, if they go back without reciting Talbiyah, then sacrifice becomes obligatory. Moving on to the Maliki view, they state that if someone misses the Miqat entirely, they should offer a sacrifice, even if they later return to the Miqat. As for the Shafi scholars, they emphasize that if a person crosses the Miqat without entering Ihram, they must offer a sacrifice. But if they cross and then return to the Miqat and haven't performed any Hajj rites, then no sacrifice is required. Lastly, the Hanbali perspective suggests that if someone goes back to the Miqat, then they are not required to offer sacrifice. The key takeaway here is that the rules about sacrifice and returning to the Miqat vary slightly among the schools, but the overarching theme is the importance of intentions and actions at that critical point before entering Ihram. Understanding these differences helps us appreciate the nuances in Hajj rituals and emphasizes the importance of following the appropriate rulings for a valid pilgrimage.